Garfield the cat is one of the most well-known cartoon/comic strip characters known to mankind. He was first created by cartoonist Jim Davis in June of 1978. The comic strip followed the adventures of the said character, who is a fat and lazy cat, and a bunch of characters as well, including Odie, his canine friend, John Arbuckle, Garfield and Odie's owner, Nermal the Gray Kitten, who is a self-proclaimed world's cutest kitty cat, and lots of other characters, too many to name here. Throughout the years, Garfield has spawned many different kinds of merchandise, including children's storybooks. The book that I'm going to be reviewing today will be one of those storybooks starring the lovable, lazy, fat cat. The book that I'm going to be reviewing today is called Garfield the Cat Show, written by Norma Simone and designed and illustrated by Mike Fence. The story begins on a quiet evening with Nermal the kitten watching the evening news on TV. The quietness of the evening doesn't last long, though, because at that moment, Garfield rushes into the room, takes the TV remote, and states that it's time for his favorite game show, Feed Your Face, which I can imagine would be just a glorified eating contest aired on TV. This moment is just what you would expect Garfield to do whenever he sees someone watching TV. Before Garfield could change the channel with the remote control, the anchorman on the evening news show that Nermal was watching makes an announcement stating that there will be a 20th annual cat show taking place in Wilbur Hall the following day. All the cats who enter the show will compete for the title of America's Best Cat. And the anchorman shows a picture of the previous year's cat show winner, Algernon LeBeau. Garfield turns off the TV, not impressed by that cat. He confidently states that he could beat him. Nermal does not agree, and Garfield challenges him on that, saying that the following night on the evening news, they will show his face on TV. With that, Garfield begins preparing for the cat show at that moment. He does various things such as lifting weights that consist of, can you guess? If you said Panza Garfield's favorite food, lasagna, you're absolutely right. Practicing his singing and going to sleep, basically the things that typically Garfield's doing. I would like to note that how in this part of the story, Nermal appears to be more of a voice of reason, commenting on the various things that Garfield does while preparing for the cat show, and knowing that this preparation will do nothing for him. Normally, Nermal is the one who's annoying, especially to Garfield when bragging about his cuteness. Interesting to have Nermal to be this way, and I suspect that this was done by the author in order for the story to work. The next day, Garfield makes his way to the cat show in Wilbur Hall. Pretty much as soon as Garfield entered the building, a huge, burly security guard spots him and kicks him out of the place. Clearly, Garfield needs to find another way to get into the cat show. After looking around for a moment, he spots two workmen carrying bags of cat litter into the building, presumably to be used for the cat show taking place. Garfield decides to slip into one of the bags to sneak into the building. Looking at this illustration, I find it pretty comical how the two workmen are struggling to pick up the bag of cat litter that Garfield is hiding in. Even the man on the right, who looks like he could easily pick up the bag himself. It would make one wonder, how much does Garfield weigh? It reminds me of a statement Garfield made in a comic strip, "I'm not underweight, I'm under tall." Before Garfield knew it, he enters the cat show and gets dumped into a litter box that belongs to a Siamese cat. Needless to say, the Siamese cat is not at all happy to see Garfield in her litter. Garfield replies to this with a snide question. Personally, I don't blame the Siamese cat for being unhappy in this case. If I were a cat, I wouldn't like to have a random cat like Garfield in my personal litter box either. Garfield looks around and meets other cats, including a Persian cat who laughs and makes a snide comment about Garfield's fur coat. Finally, Garfield meets a champion cat, Algernon LeBeau, and tells him that he's going to win this year. Algernon sniffs and replies with, "Win what? The blimp look-alike contest?" Honestly, I think that's the kind of contest that Garfield would win for sure. Garfield hears an announcement that the judging of the cats is about to begin. Garfield sees this as an opportunity to get revenge on the cats in the show. The Siamese cat, whom we've seen earlier in the story, is lapping up a bowl of cream, and unbeknownst to her, Garfield pours some cat shampoo into the bowl. The Siamese cat laps up some of the cream with the shampoo in it, and is surprised to find that she is blowing soap bubbles out of her nose as a result. Because of this, the horrified judges decide to disqualify the Siamese cat. Garfield sees this as a score one for him. Disregarding the fact that the Siamese cat got disqualified for something that was out of her control, I would be more concerned for the Siamese cat health. After consuming the shampoo and the cream like that at this moment, not only would it not taste very good, but I would wonder if that does any damage to the cat's stomach or any of her other insides for that matter. Next, the Persian cat, whom we also saw earlier, is brushing his long fur until Garfield drenches him with a bucket of water. Needless to say, the Persian is completely soaked. And I have to say, while it was unfortunate that this happened to the Persian cat, I find a shocked expression in this illustration to be pretty funny and comical. Once again, the judges were not happy to see this. Comment that the cat looks like a wet mop, and like the Siamese cat, the Persian cat gets disqualified from the show as well. Score 2 for Garfield. Finally, the judges come to the champion, Algernon LeBeau. He strikes his finest pose, and the judges are very impressed with him. All that is about to change, though, when Garfield has one final trick up his sleeve. He releases a toy wind-up mouse into the room. This mouse brings out the savage in Algernon LeBeau and chases ferociously after the mouse. Garfield sees this as victory and eggs Algernon on. Before anyone knew it, all the cats in the show, along with Algernon, chase after the toy mouse. And in turn, all the owners chase after the cats. Needless to say, the show at this point turns into a show of complete chaos. You know, if this book was ever adapted into animation, more specifically as a short cartoon on the Garfield and Friends animated series, I can totally see this being a part of the story being translated beautifully into animation. Especially seeing the cats chase after the mouse and the owners chasing the cats, and how much physical comedy could come from that. We're not really told exactly if the cats ever caught the mouse, how the cat show ended, and what Garfield was doing when all this was going on. Did he stick around and watch the complete chaos? Or did he just silently cheer for his well-done havoc wreckage and just leave the building? We'll never know, so I would think it's left to the imagination of the reader. Later that day, in the evening, just like in the beginning of the story, Nerm was watching TV, specifically the evening news. The news does a special report on the cat show that took place earlier that day and how it turned out. And it was ruined. The reporter reports that the City Pound and the Cat Society are now searching for an unidentified fat cat who ruined the cat show this afternoon. Anyone who has seen this cat, please call the station. I'm sure you can guess who the unidentified fat cat is that they're looking for. It's Garfield. To Nermal's astonishment, Garfield has finally got his face on TV, even if it meant to be in a notorious manner, like in a wanted poster in an Old West town. Garfield, wearing a fake nose and glasses, shrugs and states that, I don't know what you're talking about. I've never seen that cat before in my life, but he certainly looks like a champion to me. In his mind, Garfield is the champion of the cat show he ruined. The end. My final thoughts on this book. This book holds a lot of nostalgia value for me, as I've read this book many times as a child, and I own the book on tape version of this story that I listen to often as well. However, this book is not without flaws. The story itself is rather shallow, with Garfield being his usual self-centered, sassy self, and wrecking a cat show in order to make himself the champion by any means necessary, even if it's not official. Some of the things that Garfield does to get revenge on the cats are actually kind of cruel and not very nice to read, especially the moment when Garfield puts cat shampoo into the cream that the Siamese cat was lapping up, for instance. Seems like Garfield had very little motivation to mess with the cat show as I see it. I think the story would be better if the story involved John Arbuckle, Garfield's owner, enters him into the cat show, and both John and Garfield have visions of Garfield becoming the champion and actually competing against the other cats for the title. Garfield and John try too hard to win the contest and end up losing, making them realize that being a champion wouldn't have been what it's cracked up to be after all. It would have offered a better lesson, I think. I think it would have been nice also to have some more of the familiar characters appearing in the story, instead of just normal. As it is, it's filled with generic characters that we'll never see again in this series of books. There are some positives about this story, though. For example, the illustrations in this book are exceptionally well done. The artist really has a solid feel for the art style and overall feel of the Garfield universe and reflected it well. I especially like the extremely cartoony expressions on the various characters and the playful comical atmosphere throughout each moment that's illustrated. While I do find the story generic, I find it can be also satisfying for the reader who's a fan of the Garfield franchise in general, and for kids as well. Finally, would I recommend this book to others? Yes and no. For this story, as I mentioned earlier, is satisfying for the fans of the Garfield franchise like myself, and will get some reading enjoyment, but for others, I think there are better books for kids, even in the Garfield series. Overall, a Garfield book that's true to the nature of the franchise and is fine for what it is. But since I have a lot of fond nostalgia for this book, I think it's worth reading despite its flaws. I hope you enjoyed my review of Garfield the Cat Show. If you have any suggestions for books for future review videos, please feel free to leave them for me in the comment section below. Please comment, share this video, and to subscribe to my channel as well. Have a nice day, everyone, and thank you very much for watching.